We did hear yesterday that Liverpool, Beth, had finally made their offer for Alexander Isak. What's the latest today?
Yeah, so it was
I think
a big day yesterday.
Are you called Beth, Don?
Have you changed your name, Don?
Sorry,
Don.
Go back. Go
back
on vacation, Don. I do apologise,
right.
No, no worries at all. Yeah, it was a big day yesterday. Obviously, the interest from Liverpool in Alexander Isak has been ongoing for a really long time now. It feels like it's been a drawn out saga already, and I'm sure we've still got a lot of that left to play. But yeah, Liverpool made their first official bid for him yesterday. We believe it was around 110 million as an upfront fee. Newcastle obviously have been quite firm all summer that the price for Alexander Isak, if they were to sell him, would be around the 150 million mark. Obviously, Liverpool bidding well below that, so it was always going to be rejected, that offer, and Liverpool will have known that. They will have gone into that knowing that bid will have been turned down. And then we started hearing reports later on in the evening about Liverpool's stance changing in the face of that rejection, and then potentially walking away from a deal that they're not planning, as things stand, to make a second bid for Alexander Isak. However, you know, the reading between the lines there, as much as Liverpool aren't planning to bid straight away to make a second bid, there's every chance that I think if Newcastle are able to get a replacement in, which I know we'll go on to talk about with Benjamin Sesko, but if they're able to get that over the line, that could open the door then for Liverpool to re-enter negotiations and bid again. But as things stand, the bid has been rejected, and Liverpool for the time being are just sort of monitoring things from afar.
Oh, Don, you know what? We took a look at the last show you were on, and things have really changed. Ekitike was linked to Newcastle. Back then, Newcastle were really running on a high, obviously. They won their first cup in forever. They've made the Champions League. Everything's looking great. Now, Isak wants to leave. Ekitike's gone to Liverpool. It's all come crashing down, Don.
Liverpool have absolutely butchered Newcastle's summer, because I sat here 3 weeks ago and I thought, really optimistically, I thought Newcastle could push and challenge the top three because Isak hadn't been tapped up at the time or reportedly to leave. They put a bid in for Ekitike, who I think is a fantastic young player. And I thought with the midfield that they've got and the debates that me and Steve and Ali have had over the best midfield or one of the best midfield in the country, very solid at the back, I thought Champions League football, winning their trophy last season, I thought this summer was the one where if Ekitike had went to Newcastle, Newcastle could have been looking to challenge the top three, win another major trophy, and all of a sudden kick on and be a regular in the top four. Now, all of a sudden, Liverpool have come in and Ekitike is gone. I don't think it'll be the last bid. I really don't for Alexander Isak. The journalists up in Newcastle seem to think the 110, which I think is embarrassing from Liverpool's point of view, because the number's going to be closer to 140, 150. So I've got no idea why Liverpool have gone in at 110, because they know they're going to get knocked back, which is going to upset Newcastle. I listened to Eddie Howe's interview today, and he's the one I feel sorry for the most, because he's on pre-season tour trying to organise a team and trying to organise a group of players to try and get minutes to prepare for a first Premier League game in about 2 weeks' time. Newcastle fans I've spoke to sort of want him gone. If he's going to go out like this and this is the way he's going to go, they'll want him gone, and in 5 years' time they'll forget his name, because there's a reason why they still sing for Kevin Keegan and Alan Shearer, Jackie Milburn, Andy Cole, Peter Beardsley, etc. So it's all become a little bit messy, but I don't think this is the end of it.
Yeah, it sounds as though the answer might have already been told to us here by Don. When I'm going to ask you next, Don, you played for Liverpool, but obviously you're a Newcastle fan, you're from the region. What should Isak do?
Yeah.
What do you want him to do?
If he wants to move, let him go?
What do you want him to do with your heart?
Do you know what? I'd love him to stay, because that might be the case. I think the rumours are that he returned back to Newcastle up on Tyneside today to report back for training for Monday morning. So if Liverpool lowball Newcastle at 110, then he ain't going to go, because Newcastle have got the power. He's got 3 years left on his contract, so they can actually say to him, you are staying. Then it's a test of the player's character. Are you going to down tools? Are you going to get yourself ready for the first day of the Premier League? Which I'm pretty sure 99% professionals would do. It'll be a blow for him, and he'll have the and he'll be moody for a few days. But once the saga ends, and if Liverpool's stance is we're not going any higher, any closer to 150, Newcastle have got all the money in the world and all the power on the player's contract to say, well, we're not going to sell you, so you've got to get your head down and play. Now, that might change in 6 months' time or a year's time, but as it stands, it's actually 50-50 whether he stays or really goes, because it's all down to Liverpool's bid. Beth's correct in saying if Newcastle get replacements in, they might then, You know, I think if Newcastle got 2 players in, there's good number 9s out there. There's guys like Ollie Watkins or Garassi at a different age profile, I would imagine, at 29. But there's players like Wissa, there's players like Sesko. If they get 2 players in for the Alexander Isak money, I think Newcastle are in a good position all of a sudden.
Do you think it's shocking to see Don turn his back on Liverpool like this?
To be honest, I'm trying to figure out where he's going with the Watkins, Wissa, these types of players. That's not the type of player that's going to get Newcastle either then or close to the top 3 or fighting for Champions League every season. I mean, it's just not, Don. They have to get a bona fide player in like Sesko. After that, they're just filling a hole.
Yeah.
And so if they're filling a hole, it's one thing to have 150 million in your pocket, but if you're going to try and fill a hole for 12 months and let Isak go, if they do get offered 140, say, that ain't taking them, that doesn't guarantee them top 4. So they're not going to win.
Don't forget they lost Callum Wilson as well, Stevie.
Yeah, they got nobody.
Don't forget they lost Callum Wilson as well. So as it stands, Newcastle, if Alexander Isak goes, they haven't even got a number 9.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to replace 2 players.
But listen, if you're going to go and get, Don, honestly, if you're going to go and get Wissa and Ollie Watkins, all you're doing is plugging a hole. You are not taking a step forward.
Yeah.
You're taking a step back. And Newcastle can't do that.
No, correct. Correct. What I meant was Benjamin Sesko is the one that they want. They've bid about 70 million for him, but I think they need another one. And if you get Sesko in and it's Ollie Watkins or a Wissa, which I think Newcastle are interested in because he's not training with Brentford. I think he's been away for a couple of days. I heard their manager talk today that that's a messy situation as well. So it's all becoming a little bit of a really messy situation that we're seeing at a lot of clubs, which we've not seen this for a number of years. Transfers are normally quite hard and quite complex, but they normally get done. We've seen a couple of players now in Wissa and Alexander Isak who are not even training at their clubs.
Yeah, let's talk about Alexander Isak's location because Eddie Howe is keeping up with that on social media, it would appear. Don spoke about hearing what Eddie Howe had to say about the whole situation. He said, yeah, I know where he is, really, through the media. So I think from that perspective, it's difficult for me to go into any kind of detail. The situation is far from ideal and it's quite complex. So I think that's all I've got to say. Stevie, as a coach, do you not have these conversations with a player when they're want away? Is there not a direct line to them?
You know, for Eddie Howe, it's a real tough situation because he doesn't know which way this is going to go. And what does he do? Does he try and do the strong arm tactics on Isak? Does he sit him down and go, I don't care how much they offer. You've got 3 years on your deal. We need you. Maybe we can do this in 12 months' time. Or does he try and play well, it's really not up to me 100%. It's up to the board. And that way he's trying to keep him on his side so that if things don't work out for Isak, at least Isak maybe can play for him. So Eddie Howe's in a kind of a no-win situation. He really doesn't know which way to turn. And if I was Eddie Howe, I would try and push this all onto the board so that regardless of the outcome, he's not getting tired with anything.
Yeah, and while it is a really difficult position to be in as a manager, that you don't know whether your superstar is going to be part of the team or not, and how you're going to address his absence, all the while you're trying to prepare the team for the season. Yeah. I understand it. It's an uncomfortable position. But you shouldn't be finding out where your superstar player is through the media. There are devices, they're called cell phones, that you can utilize to just directly call the player just to maintain an open dialogue and a conversation. Hey, Alexander, I'm just checking up on you. How you doing? How's it going? I know things can go either way, whatever the case may be, but what are you doing to stay fit? What are you doing to stay prepared? And if indeed you end up staying here in Newcastle, we'll welcome you and we'll be ready to go whenever we come back from this tour. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that.
Yeah, that's good. The problem is, Ali, that's good theory.
Okay.
And that would be the adult thing to do and the sensible thing to do.
Okay.
But it doesn't, I don't think that's the way it turns out. You know, I know it's completely different, but, you know, dealing with a situation I had with Shaori, it's awkward because he doesn't want to talk to you. He wants nothing, the player wants nothing to do with it. He wants his agent to take all the flack, have all the conversations. The player really wants to, although he wants you to know that he wants to go, He wants to leave it up to his people to sort it out. He doesn't want to be sitting on the phone all the time and in the firing line with the manager and the board and everybody else. And probably that's why he's taking his cell away back to Sociedad to train, to get himself out the road and let his agents and his people and the club deal with it. So it's a really tricky situation.
I understand it. Fine. You don't want to have a conversation. You don't want to be adults about it. Send a text message. Look, I think there are ways in which you maintain a dialogue that doesn't have to do anything with the contract negotiation or the demands of the player. It's far more about, listen, if you're going to be here, we just need you to be ready to go. So make sure that you're taking care of yourself. And in having that open dialogue, I think if you're Eddie Howe, you get a better understanding from where Alexander Isak is coming from. And you can potentially relate to the player and the player can relate to you. I don't think this can be left to, well, I'm just finding out like everybody else through the media. There's got to be more to this than just finding out, like all of us are finding out, what the future is for Alexander Isak if you're the manager of Newcastle.
Where do you stand on it, Don?
Well, I think Stevie's pretty much nailed it. I mean, Eddie Howe, I would imagine, has phoned Alexander Isak, and he probably has sent him a text. He's probably sent him loads and probably phoned him 4 or 5 times. But some players haven't got the bottle to pick up the phone. If they don't want to deal with it, Stevie's nailed it. Sometimes you push it onto your agent. I just think he's got to have the conversation as a player and do the right thing. And if you want to leave, go and put a transfer request in. Go and see how much you really want to leave Newcastle by putting a written transfer request in and give up all your 3 years' money. That's a test. Now, go and do that if you really want to push through a move to Liverpool. But as I said, Liverpool have lowballed Newcastle. We're 110 million. Liverpool know the asking price. It's 150 or very close to it. So going in at 110 is a terrible bid because it puts the player in no man's land. He can't then sort of half force through a move because Liverpool are £40 million short. So they'll go in again. And the next bid will be in and around sort of 125, 130. So Alexander Isak wants to go, right? So we all know that he wants to go to Liverpool. And if he wants to go to a Champions League team and try and win the title and win the Champions League, good luck to him. All players have a short shelf life. If you want to go and make that move, go and make the move, but do it properly. Newcastle have given you a really good contract. They've put him on really high wages. He's done right for Newcastle, don't get me wrong. They've looked after him. They've made sure they've turned him into a Champions League footballer and one of the best number 9s out there. That's why Liverpool want to sign him. But I just think from the player's point of view, go and do the right thing. Just listen to Eddie Howe. Pick up the phone, even if you say, listen, boss, like, I haven't really got much to say. I want to move. But at least have the courtesy and the respect to speak to your manager. I don't get the point in blanking him. It's just a coward's move if you're not going to answer a phone call to your gaffer.
Don has got it at like 50-50, Beth, whether Alexander Isak stays or goes. How would you divvy it up?
Yeah, I'd be inclined to agree with that. I think so much is dependent on who Newcastle are able to bring in. We know they've been unsuccessful with landing a couple of targets. We know that Hugo Ekitike, who obviously is now at Liverpool, was one of those targets. So, had Liverpool not moved for him, we could be in a very different position. Now, Newcastle might actually be in a position where they could have turned around and said, you know what, we can agree to move on Alexander Isak. So I think so much depends on who Newcastle are able to bring in, and also on the player. As Don said, we're talking about him coming back to training this week, but if he turns up on Monday and hands in an official transfer request, then again, does that alter Newcastle's stance at all? It all depends on how willing the player is to stay at Newcastle if a fee can't be agreed. So I think it will very much depend on a number of different variables. What I will say is that Liverpool, despite having that opening bid rejected, still remain very, very interested in the player. He seems to be sort of set on Liverpool as his destination. And I agree with what the guys are saying. If you're a fan of Newcastle at the moment, it's so disappointing to see a player who you have looked up to as a hero behaving in this way. But it's a similar situation with Visser at Brentford. He's been given an opportunity to move on to a club that can help his personal ambitions, and he's now not training for Brentford. And then the same thing's happening, obviously, at Newcastle with Isak. So, unfortunately, it's sort of the food chain, I guess, and the way that things work. And as much as that's unpleasant for fans at times, that is the game that we're in, and players now do have that power, rightly or wrongly, to be able to influence these moves. So I think how Isak goes about things over the next week will very much determine how this one plays out going forward.